So we're going to continue this Piers Morgan video. I think he's bringing on the panel right now to, I guess, discuss maybe Venezuela and Iran and stuff like that. So let's get into it.
Joining me now to discuss Iran, Venezuela, Greenland, and more, and indeed the presidential bird flip, is Glenn Greenwald, the host of System Update, Anna Kasprian, executive producer and host of The Young Turks, author, journalist, and broadcaster Jorge Ramos, who was detained by the Maduro regime in 2019, and the Iranian-American foreign policy analyst Lisa Daftari. Welcome to all of you. A stellar panel. Happy New Year to all of you. Let's get the civil stuff out the way early so that we can have the less than civil stuff later as things turn a little Trump-like and inappropriate.
Did you guys see that Anna Kasprian versus Pearl debate? Like, that shit was, man. I mean, honestly, like, I don't like presenting in front of people, especially debating. You know, it's kind of like, it's terrible, bro. Like, I don't like it. I don't like I guess really it's one of my fears, honestly. Like, I just don't like it, you know. I know if I did it more, obviously I'd be better, like, I guess anybody, but, like, just doing that shit, I'm not that good at it. Yeah. But, yeah.
As we get into these things, let's start with that. Glenn Greenwald, the President of the United States flipping the bird at an American car worker. Appropriate?
Honestly, it's not something that particularly bothers me. I think, though, at the same time, it's perfectly fine for a factory worker who feels like President Trump's policies have been harmful to him and his economic security and his family's economic security to scream at him as well. That is the nature of the United States. We don't have royalty. We're not expected to be totally deferential or even necessarily polite to our political leaders. And I thought what he did was fine. And, you know, you can make an argument of presidential decorum, but I'm not really bothered by what President Trump did either.
Anna Kasprian, what did you think of that incident?
I thought it was a perfect representation of what President Trump thinks about the ordinary American worker. And I think his actions and his...
Oh my gosh, shut up, Anna. Bro, motherfucker said you're a pedophile protector. Like, what's wrong with Trump giving him the middle finger and saying fuck you, and then he's going to keep walking? Oh, that's what he thinks about the American consumer. Well, that's what the little America thinks about the president. Like, it goes both ways. The fuck?
Policies have made that abundantly clear. But that vile gesture to an American worker helps you kind of visualize what he actually thinks about Americans. That's what I think.
I mean, the worker was screaming at him, pedophile protector.
Yeah, because he is. He is a pedophile protector. Has still to comply with the order to release the Epstein files. We got one batch that's heavily redacted. Supposedly more was on the way. No, he wants to engage in the cover-up. I mean, I think that's been abundantly clear from day one. And what is that cover-up about? It's about covering up for a pedophile and his co-conspirators. So it is what it is. It's true.
And Jorge Ramos, two things I guess from this. One is the free speech part. Should Ford have suspended this guy for asking that question or making that statement about the president? And should the president have responded by flipping the bird?
I mean, I guess it depends, or if they're like, I mean, it depends on what the company's policy is. If that's against their policy, then yeah, you deserve to get fired, or you're going to get fired, you know. But if it's nowhere in their policy stating that, like, you cannot express your political opinion when we have I guess a foreign dignitary or a government official here, then, like, it's like, well, no, you can't, because it's not in your policy. It doesn't say it anywhere that I can't express my opinion. So it kind of just depends. And yes, Trump can respond however he wants, as long as it's not fucking violence, you know. It's like,
I mean, I was surprised. I wasn't. I saw him and said that's precisely Donald Trump. And then that's just one example. Just recently, you know what has happened in Minneapolis, and the way he has referred to Rene Good is simply not appropriate. And the way he's been criticizing immigrants and calling them rapists and criminals, that's not appropriate. So I'm really not surprised by Donald Trump, not at this point, not after so many years since we have known him.
And with regard to Ford suspending this employee?
Well, if it's a private company, probably they can do whatever they want. I mean, and we as journalists, we have limits. There are certain things that I cannot say about child pornography. I cannot just create a danger when it doesn't happen. And if there's a defamation, I'm responsible. But if it's a private company, it is very, very, those are different rules. However, I'm for complete freedom. I mean, I think we can and should say whatever we want, but then there are consequences, and we just saw it.
Lisa, it feels slightly trivial, I guess, to be starting with this. It was only because I ended the conversation with Rand Paul. But what do you believe this incident says about modern America, where the President of the United States is giving the finger to an American car worker?
Yeah, I think this Trump derangement syndrome has given people a bit too much liberty to act and behave in certain ways where, school day is canceled when Donald Trump is elected president because people have to emotionally process. And, this is a democratic society. And yes, we have our freedoms, so we should also have a certain level of respect for the institution of the presidency. Because, look, President Trump won't always be in office, but will we remain a society that disrespects police, teachers, elected officials, and, of course, the president?
Right. Piers,
can I just quickly interject on that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This phrase, Trump derangement syndrome, this was invented by Charles Krauthammer, who was a Washington Post columnist and a psychiatrist back in the Bush years, to pathologize people who were criticizing George Bush for the war on terror, basically saying they were mentally ill. It then got transported to every president. Obama derangement syndrome, now Trump derangement syndrome, which is basically a way of saying that if you vehemently oppose your president, that you have some sort of behavioral problem. That is the spirit of America going back since its founding, is we curse our leaders, we can say the worst things about them. And the idea that somehow Trump gets an unusual amount or a unique amount of abuse, go look at what conservatives were saying about Joe Biden and Barack Obama. They were communist dictators, they were incredibly corrupt. Obama wasn't even born here, he was born in Kenya. I mean, this idea that somehow, now that Trump's president...
I mean, he was born in Kenya, right?
We're all supposed to elevate our level of respect. It's just very un-American. That's just not how...
And he had a fake birth certificate, right? I'm pretty sure that was all, known.
Our citizenry relates to our political leadership.
I do think, though, that Donald Trump has a unique ability to make people on the left lose their minds.
Facts.
And
Emotional response.
And I do think he does it quite deliberately, and he's very, very good at it. And I do feel that people on the left would benefit collectively from not losing their minds constantly about everything Trump does, because there's enough stuff you can go after Trump about which is legitimately worthy of attention, energy, criticism, and debate, without going over every single
covering
thing
up
he's...
the Epstein files.
Well, yeah, I agree.
I think that's worth it.
Yeah,
right? Covering up for pedophiles, that's worth it.
I totally agree. Totally agree. I'm not talking about that at all. But I'm saying, if you...
But where was that same energy when that was under Biden? You didn't have that same energy. They don't have the energy when it's under the Democrats, but only when it's Trump. Biden had it longer than Trump had it. All the evidence and him going to jail and stuff and all this pedophilia. Biden had it the entire time. The Democrats had it the entire time. So where's the same energy?
About absolutely everything, then ultimately it dilutes the impact, I think, of taking him on in a smarter way.
But that's why I just can't get. That's why I can't get worked up over Trump extending his middle finger when we're talking about arming Israel and its destruction of Gaza, what he's doing in Iran. And I do agree that the liberal tendency to be maximalist about everything Trump does has watered down the genuine criticism, because you're constantly screaming fascist and Nazi. It loses its sting for the times that you actually need it.
Yeah, I agree. Look, let's talk about Iran.
That's one of the beauties of America. I mean, when I first came to the United States from Mexico, Mexico was not a democracy. One of the things that I truly loved early 1980s is how journalists were criticizing then Ronald Reagan. And my first reaction, that's incredible. And I said, this is exactly the country where I want to be a journalist. So that's part of the beauty of America.
Yeah, I completely concur. And look, in England, the UK, we've had 12,000 people arrested last year for speech. 12,000. I mean, it's absolutely shocking to me. I mean, that's the kind of thing, if it happened in a fascist state, you'd say, okay, they're fascists, but it's happening in my country. 12,000 people arrested for stuff they said on social media or whatever.
That means you live in a fascist state.
It'd be quite terrifying, actually. Let's turn to Iran, and let's start with you, Glenn, on Iran. I posted today something I've just been thinking about this week, which is that there's been a kind of deafening silence from Hollywood. The Golden Globes came and went in the middle of all this with no celebrity mentioning the Iranian protesters. Very few high-profile media people who've been very vocal about what's happened, for example, in Gaza, have said anything about it either. And to me, there is a moral hypocrisy and cowardice going on here. And it's linked to the fact that in their heads, they believe this is all benefiting Israel, that Israel's tentacles are clearly involved here in fomenting the protests and encouraging America to take action and so on, which may well all be true. But it doesn't change the fact that to me, it's warped their humanity from queuing up and protesting in large numbers about what's happening in Gaza, quite rightly, but zero complaint or protests or offers of sympathy or empathy to the Iranian protesters. What do you say to that? New Year.
Man, he has so many fucking sponsors for his videos.
I couldn't disagree with that more for two reasons. First of all, Americans protest what their government does because that's what they can influence. They protested the Vietnam War that the U.S. was waging. They protested U.S. support for the apartheid regime of South Africa because that's what the U.S. was doing. They protest the U.S. support and financing and arming of Israel's destruction of Gaza because that was what the United States was doing. The United States isn't supporting Iran. What would these protests? What would their impact be? The reason why people protest is because they want.
Yeah. Also, I've been kind of in line with what he's saying. I've heard somebody say that like they're just looking for any reason, honestly, just to attack Iran right now. Honestly, it's like last year it was you can't enrich uranium past a certain percentage. I forget. I think it was 60%. I can't remember. But you can't enrich uranium past a certain percentage. Okay, cool. But they got attacked. Then it was like, oh, you can't have these type of missiles or whatever. Okay, cool. Then it's now, if you kill too many of your people protesting, we're gonna invade you. It's like, god damn. It's like shit, man. But like pretty soon it's gonna get so fucking minuscule. It's like, bro, like how would you say it? Like the internet shit. It's like, if you don't give them internet, we're gonna fucking invade you and bomb you. Like, oh, what the, bro? It's like, damn. It's like they're looking for any reason to like just invade them. Like anything to pop off and just go fucking full hammer mode.
Government to change their policy. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think most people understand, although it's completely excluded from Western elite political and media discourse, that the United States and Great Britain love tyranny of this kind. The United States and Great Britain not just do business with, but prop up and keep in power some of the worst, most repressive, savage tyrannies on the planet in Saudi Arabia, in the United Arab Emirates, in Egypt, in all kinds of countries in that region, in Uganda, in Rwanda. Why aren't people going out on the street and protesting that? And nobody asks about that.
Well, it's obviously because Trump's not doing anything about it, and also it doesn't make mainstream news because Trump's not involved in it. And yeah, I mean that's basically it. If Trump's not involved in it, then it doesn't really make mainstream news. Or if Trump's not talking about it, doesn't make mainstream news. Like that's just the point of it. Or if there's not like a honestly, like if they're not like under American or European, like I guess you could say alliance really, or like agreement, they don't really give a fuck. You know, it's like, oh well, they're on our team. We don't really give a fuck.
And I think the reason is because the argument here, what's really driving this concern about Iran is not that we're so concerned about repression and tyranny because we're such great humanitarians, because the U.S. has done more to remove democratically elected governments and install dictatorships than the other way around. It's because Iran is viewed as a geopolitical enemy of the United States and Israel, and that's why so few people care about repression in our greatest allies in Saudi Arabia and Egypt and the like. But I think the main one is, the question is, they're protesting U.S. policy when they protest what's going on in Gaza, and the U.S. isn't supporting Iran.
Yeah, look, I would say to that, I'll come to you now, Lisa, but I would say to that doesn't stop a Hollywood star standing up in a public platform like the Golden Globes, where they were all supporting, for example, the woman who was shot dead by the ICE officer. They were, a lot of them, supporting still what's happening in...
Well, Americans are fucking retarded, and nobody really pays attention to politics or what's going on in media like that, so they're not really keeping themselves up to date. Most people are just retarded, and like whatever's a trend, that's what they do. A lot of people in America can't really think outside the box, no matter how famous or how rich they are, you know, in society. Like a lot of times they can't think outside the box. They're literally in a box, you know.
Gaza and the Palestinian people, none of them wanted to express public support for the Iranian people. And I was just struck by that. So I think you don't have to protest necessarily as publicly offer support. I'm not seeing much of that from the people who've been leading the calls for people to support and show empathy for the Palestinians. Do you feel there is a double standard in the way this is being treated?
Absolutely. There is a huge hypocrisy in the way that most people in the West have even paid attention to what's going on in Iran over the last 2 weeks. In just 3 days, we don't have an exact death toll, but it could be more people than have been killed in Gaza in over the 3 years that we had that war, 2.5 years that we had that war. But why are you saying, oh my God? I mean, can I speak? You know what?
Yeah,
with this,
sorry,
whole
please go ahead. But that is just.
The fact that you are
shouldn't
so
just
privileged
invent
to
statistics.
sit
You
here
shouldn't just
and
invent.
to tell the Iranian people.
You're not
No.
privileged. Where do you live? You're not
I'm
privileged.
talking about the Iranian people. I will never take away from the fight of the Iranian people because of where I sit. You know why I do
I'm
what I do?
not taking away from the
Because
Iranian people.
understand
I
my
just don't
privilege.
want people to lie about
understand
them, and I
that
don't want
am
my
blessed
government
to be on
intervening
air,
militarily.
showing my hair and not losing my life for it. That's where I feel privileged. This whole conversation, Piers, points to
You're
one
totally
thing.
privileged. You're
1979,
totally privileged. So
this
don't use that as
government-
an
why are you
argument to
speaking over me?
weaponize.
Why are you speaking over me? You don't want to hear what I
made
say.
an
what are your
accusation.
thoughts?
You
Look,
invented
look,
an
let me-
accusation.
okay,
Hang
hang
on.
on. All right, time
For
out.
all of you
Hang
who
on,
are
hang on one
talking down my
second.
throat.
Let's not all talk at the same time. I think we can.
crazy.
I think we can say
You know
this.
this points to
I think
Piers,
Lisa,
this
hang
is-
on, Lisa, hang on. Let's just get to some reported facts as we understand them. In Gaza, it has been reported widely that the death toll is around 70 to 80,000. Now, that is a matter of conjecture. People say it could be higher. Some have said it may be too high. But that is the general accepted
Reports
number.
came out that
but we're
that's
talking
much-
about
much
that.
lower, and most of those were
Okay, but we're
terrorists.
talking, but that's a
We
period.
have to talk facts.
Lisa, let me finish
We
my
have to
point.
talk facts.
Lisa,
Don't matter,
let me
Lisa.
finish.
Those lives don't matter.
But that's in a.
What? Most of those were terrorists? I mean, what 60,000 died and there's 60,000 terrorists, even though Hamas was projected to only have between 20 to 30,000 actual troops, so that means you killed kids.
Period of over 2 years, okay? And then we come to what's happened here, and it's been reported, admitted by the Iranians, that it's at least 2,000. Other reports, CBS say they believe, from what they're hearing on the ground, it could be 12,000 or more, and we don't know. We don't know because the internet has been turned off. Information flow is terrible. The footage we're seeing, most of it is old footage, regurgitated for propaganda purposes on all sides. We just don't really know what's going on. So you might be right, but Glenn is also right to raise. But hang on, Lisa, let me finish, Lisa. Glenn might be, I think he's understandably saying, hang on a second, you got to say glibly, not you were being glib, but just to throw out there the idea that 70,000 people have been killed. We just don't know that. So I think that
Why don't I say, can I pick up where we don't even have to focus on the last 2 weeks. Why don't we focus on 47 years? Thousands and thousands have been killed for a mere Facebook post, for showing their hair, for dressing a certain way, for being an athlete, for being a journalist, pushed off the top of a building as a medical student because they
What about Gaza? They've been killed for much less. Actually, just for walking, just you getting some food, you're dead. You're done, son. Chilling in your house, you sleep, your house gets blown up, your apartment complex is blown up, 50 people dead.
protesting peacefully against the government. Can we talk about the fact that in 1979, this government came in and launched an ideological war that all of you are victims to, that are spewing these talking points? Why? Because they wanted to. Remember ISIS that we were all afraid
Why?
of?
Because we're not foot soldiers for the Zionists? Is that why? Because we're not foot soldiers for Zionists? The same Zionists that are trying to co-opt an organic uprising in Iran and essentially ruin it? Is that why?
Original caliphate. They want to export their ideology, and that is why they are a threat to the United States. They are a threat to Europe, and of course the region and to the Iranian.
Let me.
They're not a threat to the United States. They're a threat to Israel, and that's what your primary concern here is. And if you care about the people of Iran, which I do,
don't talk
you
over
would
each
want
other.
foreign
Let
actors
Anna speak,
getting
please,
involved
Lisa.
to co-opt that
Lisa, let Anna
movement and
speak.
essentially
Anna,
install a monarch
please.
that the people of
Please
Iran do
don't
not
talk
want.
over each other, or no one can hear either of you. Anna.
I'm sure they could hear me. No, I'm just saying. I mean, look, the people of Iran deserve the type of leadership and government they want. And I hate the fact that an organic demonstration has effectively been co-opted by Israeli interests who brag almost on a daily basis at this point about how they have Mossad on the ground. Mossad bragged about it. Amishai Eliyahu, who is the cultural minister in Israel, bragged about it. Israeli papers are bragging about it. Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, is bragging about it. Okay, having those types of insidious actors co-opting that demonstration is going to be to the detriment of Iran. And if Iranians want freedom, installing a Shah, installing a monarch who hasn't lived in the country for 47 years makes absolutely no sense. My heart
That's
breaks
your
for the
opinion.
Iranian people.
All right, let me-
Well, based off how all the Muslim countries are run in the Middle East, they're gonna need a Shah or an authoritarian, you know, like, or a king, a prince. Like, they're gonna need that. Like, that's just how it goes. Like, in that region, it's power that rules. You know, it's power. That's just how it goes.
What they
Sorry.
want
That's
is being
your
exploited.
opinion.
No,
That's the
no,
Iranian
Lisa,
people's opinion.
Lisa, let me bring in. I want
It's
to bring
not
in
my
Hoy.
opinion.
I want to bring in Hoy. He's been listening very patiently to this. Hoy, you've covered Iran, like so many other issues, for a very long time. My first question to you: do you believe we are, as the Chancellor of Germany has suggested, we are seeing now the beginning of the end of this regime, or do you think that is fanciful?
Well, hopefully it's going to be the beginning of the end. I mean, we've been following the massacres that have been happening in Iran for so many years. And then we've all seen the videos. The video is just horrible. The fact that we cannot agree on the number of people who have been killed in Iran is horrible. And now, let me just add that what we are here in the United States also debating is what would be the role of the United States and what President Donald Trump should do, because he threatened that he was going to participate in somehow if the number of people killed would raise, and then the numbers are incredible. I mean, we started with 2,000, probably it's 12,000. So for me, the real question is if this new doctrine, Don Road doctrine, is going to extend from Venezuela to Iran. I think that's the main question here in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to Anna's point, for example, that two things can be true at once. I mean, many things can be true at once, but it can be that the Iranian people have organically risen up as they tried before against their regime, because it's a despicable regime that represses them and treats them horrifically badly. And that's why they've done it. And it may be that at the same time, Israel senses a real opportunity to remove its main enemy in the region that's gone out of its way to empower and arm and monetize terror groups from Hamas to Hezbollah and the Houthis, right? So these things could all be true at the same time. The issue I have in terms of public pronouncements by people is that they seem to take a moral distinction between the lives of the Iranian protesters who are genuinely risking their lives to get out on the streets to battle for their freedom and democracy, when if it's Palestinians doing it, there's an unequivocal support and marching through streets showing support, not just protest. And I think we're just not seeing that from many of the same people from Iran. To me, that is a double standard.
And the response from
I
the
think
US,
part of the problem is we don't have a firm grasp on how many people have been killed. I mean, I don't doubt
Does it
that
matter?
hundreds
Even
of
one.
people, I mean,
Even
We're seeing a lot of body
have been
bags.
killed,
Even
but we
one.
don't know the
Even one? No. What the hell? This lady's fucking retarded. See, look, that's proving a point that she's serving an agenda. It's like one person's killed, so we should just fucking help. Like, no, that's not how it works, man. If they're committing atrocities and like killing like tens of thousands of people, then yes, it makes sense to like do something about it. But oh, even one person dies. No, that's not how it works, lady.
details yet.
You need
We
to
don't
know
know
the
the details yet.
You
Okay,
before
there
you
is
said the
clarity
you
because of
know.
the fact that the internet's been shut
That's
down
not
and people don't
true.
have access to
That's
accurate
not
information
true.
about it. Stop interrupting
That's
me. I'm
not
trying to
true.
make a point about
No, but
how
if I said
people
that to
do
you-
care.
yeah, but Anna,
If you
Anna,
actually
hang
value
on,
human
hang
lives,
on.
people do
Anna,
care.
if I said that to you about what was happening in Gaza, you would blow your gasket in
That's been
fury
happening the entire
that I
time,
was
by the way.
doubting the number of people
denials
being
how many
killed.
people have been slaughtered there.
Right, but you wouldn't try and
Okay.
argue the point about number of people being killed in Gaza.
And now you're trying to deny the Iranian people and their death toll. And what I'm telling you is, even if you don't even look at the last
Can we
2
just
weeks,
talk about the disparities that are being reported right now? Because we just had Homegirl talk about how there's 70 to 80,000 people who've been slaughtered in Iran.
No, because that number is
indicate
not.
that
It's not
6,000
70 or
people might have been
80,000
slaughtered
in
So
Gaza.
am I supposed to take
What
you
you're doing is
seriously?
inflating
Am I
one-
supposed to take the
the other.
Zionist who provides cover for Israel's genocide seriously on this? I don't take you
Wow.
seriously. Sorry,
Wow.
but my heart
Wow.
breaks
Also,
for the
you
innocent
are
lives
so
of Palestinian
brainwashed.
people.
All right, let me bring in
Just like
Glenn.
so brainwashed
Let me bring
you
in
have
Glenn.
lost your lives in Gaza.
Okay,
You can
let me-
actually, by the way.
Stop shouting at each other. Let me bring in Glenn Greenwald.
No, I'm
Glenn.
spewing the truth, and you don't like it.
Pierre, I just want to say, the debate that this is turned into is not a new debate. We've seen this a million times in the United States. This is what happens in every single war and proposed war that the United States wants to do. This is exactly the debate that happened in 2002, 2003. The people who were against having the United States go in and invade Iraq were told, and I know, Piers, you were one of them, Saddam Hussein is an evil dictator. He has slaughtered huge numbers of Iraqis. He gassed his own people. He tortures them in torture chambers, all of which was true. And that did not mean that either the United States ought to have intervened in order to take down the regime, or that the Iraqi people wanted the United States to go in and take down the regime, or that it would be helpful to the Iraqi people to go and take down the Iraqi regime. And I think we've seen the very clear lessons that in fact was not the truth, but it was morally repugnant to accuse opponents of U.S. intervention in Iraq of cheering for Saddam or not caring about the lives of the Iraqi people. The same thing in Vietnam. People opposed to the war in Vietnam were told, you don't care about the slaughter by Ho Chi Minh of the people in South Korea, people in South Vietnam, and rather people in Iraq, people in Libya, people in Venezuela, they're going to welcome you as liberators. They all want you to come and save them. This is all proven to be false propaganda. No one doubts the Iranian regime is a brutal, savage dictatorship. It's the same for many countries in the region, including ones the United States and the UK prop up. The issue is, if the Iranian people on their own want to protest their government, and a lot of the protests, by the way, are economic. They're suffocating economically because of U.S. sanctions. But whatever their motives are, political, economic, have at it. I mean, the Iranian people should determine their own sovereignty and their own government.
Okay.
The issue is nobody wants Israel and the United States intervening because of how disastrous that is proven to be for the countries in which they intervene.
Okay, well, let's switch.
Ron,
hang
no,
on. I want to change on the similar theme of America potentially interfering in other countries. I want to change topic just to Greenland. We're going to be joined by a guest briefly, and I'll come to the panel for their reaction to this. Carla Sands was the US ambassador to Denmark during the first Trump administration and joins me now. Welcome to you. Many people are looking on slightly aghast at Donald Trump's rhetoric. He said yesterday, the United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Green Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will. That's not going to...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, is Trump going to take it over through the military force? Honestly, I give it like a 30% chance he's going to actually do that, because that's definitely, it's not going to work. Like, he does that, and then like Congress and the the Supreme Court are going to tell him to retreat and like bring the troops back. He's going to have to purchase Greenland. Like, that's the only way he can do it. Like, anything else besides that, he can't even hold on to Greenland if he does invade it. Like, he can't. So the only thing that makes sense is to buy it.
Happen militarily without the vast power of the United States, much of which I built during my first term, and I'm now bringing to a new and even higher level. NATO wouldn't be an effective force or deterrent, not even close. They know, and I do, that NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's making it pretty clear he wants to take Greenland. Do you support this?
Well, Piers, I support the security and safety of the American people, and that is President Trump's main goal. He is working to make sure that you and I, if we're in the U.S., that we're safe, but also that our allies are safe and the world. Greenland is key because of many reasons. First of all, Greenland's going independent. They've said so, and they will go independent in the 21st century. I think Denmark has gaslighted them enough that they've slowed it down a little bit, because they've got the Greenlanders terrified by doing a psyop on the Greenlanders, sadly. But President Trump understands he's going to install the Golden Dome. It's kind of like Israel's Iron Dome, but it involves Greenland and Alaska. They are the two pieces that are needed. Now, Greenland is going independent. President Trump will not let it fall into the hands of Russia or China. And in 2019, President Trump said to the Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, who is the current Prime Minister of Denmark, and she's really good for the Danish people, not so good for the Greenlanders. President Trump said, look, I'm worried about Greenland. You haven't secured it. You have to. She goes, okay, I'm committing $200 million. We're going to invest in security for Greenland. Flash forward, she invested 1%, and it wasn't for security, $2 million. The rest, she did not invest in any security for Greenland, because they just don't care. They want their money to go to social welfare programs in Denmark. That is what the government takes care of, because that's what the people want. She's actually a decent prime minister, absolutely. But President Trump understands the urgency of making sure Greenland doesn't fall into the hands of Russia or China. The Greenlandic politicians have said, we want to have a closer relationship with China. And they've said to me personally, if the U.S. doesn't invest in our mining and our, infrastructure, we're going to get China to do it. So they don't understand the international ramifications. President Trump does. And if when they go independent, he is not going to let them be in the hands of an adversary.
And if Donald Trump just decides to take Greenland, as he's intimating, he may be compelled to do in his eyes, where does that leave us with China just taking Taiwan? What would be the moral distinction between the two things? Why shouldn't China just help themselves to Taiwan? Why shouldn't Vladimir Putin?
Facts. I mean, she's not going to have a really good argument against this, honestly. She's not at all. That just proves the point that, yeah, we might as well. China's going to take Taiwan because, like, you know, we consider a threat that if the United States puts troops here, this is a threat in our country, so let's take it, you know? Like, this is literally, like, closer to us than Venezuela is to the United States. Same with Ukraine. Ukraine is way closer to Russia than it is to, I guess, any other European country, like the Western bloc of Europe or even the United States. It's like, well, they have all the reason to invade. It makes the most sense.
Well, this is exactly what I'm doing with Ukraine. How dare you guys in the West take the high moral ground, given the United States has just helped itself to Greenland?
Well, because the despots of the world, these authoritarian figures, they see what President Trump does and they actually behave better. A strong America and a strong U.S. president gets the world order in a better place. We had terrible leadership.
No, that doesn't really work against Russia or China because it's not like they're not the same as Venezuela. Like, you're not going to walk into fucking China and just take G, or same with Russia. You're not just going to walk in there and take Putin. Like, that's not how it works, you know? Like, no, that doesn't apply to them.
For the past 4
Vladimir
years.
Putin hasn't, with all due respect,
If I
Vladimir
may,
Putin, hang on.
Putin never invaded another country.
Yeah, but Putin
President
hasn't stopped bombing Ukraine from the moment Donald Trump came to power. In
Well,
fact,
and that's a
he's
European
intensified
issue.
it.
Yeah, that's a European issue. So NATO is strong because of the US. And President Trump has been asking our European allies, please increase your ability to defend your own territory. Let's not forget that Denmark is in violation of the NATO Charter. Article 3 says that every NATO ally has the ability to defend their own territory. And then Article 5 come to the defense of their allies. Denmark has not a prayer to defend Greenland. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the money. It's a small economy about the size of the state of Colorado. Greenland is unsecure because Denmark doesn't have the ability. They're also out of line with NATO because they cannot and will never be able to defend their own territory, even if they get.
But would it be wrong? Would it be wrong legally and morally for China to then take Taiwan?
I do not believe that China will take Taiwan while President Trump is in office.
Right, but it wasn't my question. My question was, would it be legally and morally wrong of them to do it?
No.
Well, you know, Taiwan is another subject. I don't want to conflate the two. I'm not going to speculate. I'm going to talk about Greenland and the fact that the people intend to go independent. They ultimately don't want to be part of Denmark. Denmark oppressed the people. They sterilized women. They kidnapped children and took them away from the families. They've done a lot of things and kept them living very primitively until the U.S. military. We occupied Greenland in the World War II time, and we actually stayed until the 90s when the Berlin Wall fell. Then all of us, our allies, which we need our allies, we love our allies, but we all took that peace dividend and stopped spending on our defense. President Trump is working as fast as he can, urging his military to build up our defenses, to rejuvenate our weapons.
Okay.
We're still making weapons like the 90s. China and Russia are not. They're developing very quickly and cheaply very capable weapons.
Okay, Carlos Sands, thank you very much indeed.
You're so welcome.
Let's go back to the panel. Anna Kasprian, I think Carlos Sands rather pointedly ducked the comparison to Taiwan, but this is my big issue. I can understand, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I can understand the logic for why Donald Trump and his administration would like to have Greenland. There are 60,000 people that live there. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. It's massively mineral rich. It's obviously, from a security point of view, highly strategic, and so on and so on. I understand the argument, but my concern about it is simply, mainly, the precedent it sets. That if America decides it can just take Greenland, well, why can't Russia take Ukraine? Because they would use the same security argument. They have done. Why can't China take Taiwan for the same argument? What's your view?
Yeah.
Well, it's not like this latest issue of, Greenland made me change my mind on this. I've been thinking this for a while now. The United States really doesn't have a moral high ground to judge the actions of any other state. So if China decides that they want to take Taiwan, the U.S. can't use the argument that they want to protect Taiwan, that it's wrong, that they should be able to govern themselves. I mean, look what we just did in Venezuela. In essentially, luckily, we didn't engage in a long, drawn-out war in order to do regime change yet. But the idea that you just go into a country, essentially kidnap the leader of that country, however deplorable you might find him to be, and then just announce to the world, you're taking the oil. That's it. We're taking the oil. We're keeping the oil. That's not a good look, and you have no moral high ground after you do something like that. So I agree with you. And in regard to Greenland, there's one other piece of this puzzle that I don't think gets talked about enough. Responsible Statecraft did a really great report about this. Yes, the rare earth minerals are definitely bringing the United States' attention to that area. You also have the military capabilities that the U.S. wants to bolster in Greenland, which, by the way, we have a military base there right now. And Greenland has already said, if you need to build out more, like, we'll let you do that. We don't want to be part of the United States. There's also the tech industry. So Peter Thiel and Elon Musk in particular see Greenland as an important place to essentially do some of their anarcho-capitalist experiments, because they don't have to worry about certain regulations that they have to deal with in the United States. So there are all sorts of moneyed interests involved here, and what gets left out are the feelings and concerns of the indigenous people living in Greenland right now.
Okay.
Their opinions apparently don't matter at all.
All right, let me bring in Jorge Ramos here, because, look, let's just go forward a few weeks. As we're talking, it's been reported that Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will meet with Danish and Greenland officials today. So things are moving quickly here. Donald Trump's a deal maker, a trader, If he makes the Greenlanders, 60,000 of them, a tiny number of people compared to the size of the country, if he makes them an offer they can't refuse, an economic offer, so he gives them all $100,000, whatever it is, and they agree that they then want to become part of the United States, should we have a massive problem with that? I mean, I'd have a massive problem if America attacked Greenland to take it by force. But if there's an economic deal, if it's basically traded, and the Greenlanders take the money and are happy with it, and it improves security for the West, why would we have a big problem with that?
Well, of course, I mean, are we saying, take my country, give me the money?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the interview that you just had, Piers, because since when it is okay, since when it is normal that the United States can say, okay, I want that country, and then can go and just simply invade it or take it? I mean, since when can we simply do that? I mean, the same is happening with Venezuelan oil, 30 million barrels, 50 million barrels that they just took from the ships. Can they say it is ours? We're going to sell it and then give the money back to Venezuelans. Since then, it is normal that we talk like this. I mean, since Donald Trump decided to be president of the United States, but it is this is not 1823 with a doctrine, Monroe Doctrine. This is 2026. So I really cannot believe, even I haven't seen the latest polls, but people in Greenland don't want to be part of the United States. I haven't seen what people in Denmark.
Well, they don't at the moment.
But they don't want to. They don't want to be part of the United States.
Yeah, look. Let me bring Lisa in here. I mean, I made the point yesterday in a debate about this that if you look at what China's been doing in Africa, for example, that is a form of economic imperialism. They've gone in with buckets of cash. They've been spending it on all sorts of infrastructure, from bridges to hospitals to schools to roads and so on. And in return, they've acquired vast amounts of minerals from these African countries. And that is a form of economic imperialism. And Trump, I guess, would argue that this is not dissimilar. Again, I don't think America should be remotely entertaining the thought of taking Greenland by force. But if there is a deal to be done along the lines of what China's been doing in Africa without taking ownership of the countries, but in terms of doing a deal for money in return for what Greenland can offer, I don't know. I think in the end, isn't that a question for the Greenlanders?
Exactly right. You actually touched upon what I wanted to touch upon, which is the exporting of influence from our adversaries. And then we don't want to play catch up. We actually want to lead, and we want to be that leader by deterrence. So, the taking of Greenland is very similar to what you had said, the spreading of influence by Iran's regime in South America and Central America, for example, or China in the African continent and elsewhere, in exchange for whether it's technology, internet, roads, minerals, as you said. Why is it such a faux pas? We can't pick and choose. I see your panelists are picking and choosing where we want to be moral and where we want to be strategic. The United States foreign policy isn't meant to make everybody happy. It's meant to make the United States strong. It's meant to improve our economy and improve our national security and improve our security abroad. I mean, it's a conversation to be had over those things and not over morality or the high ground or whatever else we want to call.
All right, Glenn Greenwald, final word to you.
We're $40 trillion in debt because of our foreign entanglements. Saying that this is good for our economy is laughable, to say the least.
All right,
anyway,
Glenn, round things up here, because look, we're only about 2 weeks into this new year. There's a hell of a lot going on. What is your kind of overview of what's happening here?
Here's the argument that you're making, which I don't even necessarily disagree with, is exactly the argument that the Russians made when they took Crimea, which is you can question the referendum that was held. Nobody doubts that the vast majority of people who live in Crimea feel infinitely closer to Russia and want to be governed by Moscow than they do part of Ukraine and want to be governed by Kiev. And that was the president of the United States said as well when it broke off Kosovo from Serbia and said, oh, we had a referendum and the Kosovans didn't want to be part of Serbia anymore. They wanted their own independent country. So this is a precedent that a lot of countries have been setting. Some get to do it apparently, and some don't. The last thing I'll say is, this idea that China is engaged in imperialism because it goes to Africa and builds roads and hospitals and in exchange does deals. Europe and the United States just go into these countries and take them. They colonize them. They've taken them by force. I live in Brazil. China has become very popular. It's long been a U.S. bastion of influence, no longer, because the Chinese come and they don't try and bully people or push them around. They say, let's do a deal. We'll build this for you. We'll give you this, and in exchange, you give us that. And it becomes a normal quid pro quo, a dealing of commercial interest between countries. And that, I think, is the way that China has gained a lot of popularity in the world. And the United States ought to be careful not to continue to let China win by throwing its weight around and bullying and threatening other countries.
But they would argue, just finally on that point, that's precisely why they want Greenland. And if they can do an economic deal of the kind you're talking about, but that includes taking sovereignty of Greenland as part of the deal, actually, if the Greenlanders sign up to that and take the money, what's the problem?
They don't want to do that. They don't want to do that.
Well, they don't at the moment, but these things can change.
No, but I think you're right. But then the argument becomes, why can't various provinces of Georgia vote to become part of Russia? Or why can't Crimea decide that it prefers to be part of Russia? You're not wrong that does give sovereignty, and we're all talking about sovereignty for Iranians, and all seem to agree the Iranians should determine who governs them. But if other countries if Iranians can do that, then I think other countries, you're right, have that ability as well. It just can't be only the United States that gets to do that.
Right. Fascinating conversation. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Cool. What do you guys think? Do you think the United States lost its moral integrity by taking out Maduro and invading? Do you think this gives the opportunity of China and Russia to be like, well, since you did it, we have the opportunity to take Ukraine and Taiwan, so you guys can't do nothing about it, So yeah. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble. I'll catch you guys later.